In the quiet veil of a suburban twilight where manicured lawns hid seething prejudices, a black SUV rolled silently down Elmwood Drive. Its tinted windows concealed two figures dressed in crisp uniforms, badges glinting under the streetlights like false promises. They were no ordinary officers. They were imposters, hired enforcers masquerading as HOA police, their mission fueled by whispers from the neighborhood association's shadowed boardroom. The target, a modest two-story home at the end of the cul-de-sac, where lights flickered, softly behind drawn curtains. Inside, Marcus Thompson moved with the deliberate calm of a man who had stared down storms far deadlier than this encroaching night. His skin, a deep mahogany etched with the faint scars of distant battles, bore the weight of a life spent in service. He poured a cup of coffee, the steam rising like forgotten memories, unaware that the vehicle had parked just outside. The men stepped out, adjusting their holsters, their faces set in grim determination. One checked a forged warrant, the paper crisp with fabricated violations. Lawn too unkempt, mailbox non-compliant, petty excuses masking deeper animosities. Yes, they approached the door. The air thickened with unspoken malice. The lead imposter, a burly man with a sneer that betrayed his biases, rapped sharply on the wood. Marcus paused, his instincts prickling like old wounds in the rain. He had chosen this neighborhood for peace after years of chaos, but peace, it seemed, was a luxury not afforded to men like him. The knock echoed again, insistent, demanding. Outside, the second man scanned the surroundings, his hand hovering, near his weapon, ready for resistance. What these intruders didn't know, what no one in this gated enclave suspected, was that Marcus wasn't just any resident. His past was a legend whispered in military circles, a shadow that had dismantled threats across oceans. As the door creaked open, the tension coiled like a spring, promising a reckoning that would shatter illusions of control. The night was it about to reveal its true colors, and in the balance hung not just one man's freedom, but the exposure of a festering rot that had long poisoned the community. Marcus Thompson had retired to Elmwood Estates 2 years ago, seeking the serenity that eluded him during his 25 years as a Navy SEAL. At 52, his frame was still a testament to disciplined power, broad shoulders honed by endless drills, eyes sharp as eagles' talons, carrying the quiet authority of someone who had led teams through hellish operations in deserts and jungles. His skin, marked by the sun of foreign lands and the occasional reminder of shrapnel, told stories he rarely shared. He had bought the house with savings from his service, drawn to its unassuming charm. A small garden where he grew tomatoes, a porch swing for evening reflections, and neighbors who, at first, offered polite waves, but Elmwood wasn't the haven he imagined. The Homeowners Association, led by a clique of longtime residents, operated like a small fiefdom, enforcing rules with zealous fervor. Whispers circulated about their selective scrutiny. Fines for minor infractions levied more heavily on newcomers, especially those who didn't fit the mold. Marcus noticed it early. His mailbox painted the wrong shade of blue-drew complaints, while others' faded ones went ignored. His late-night jogs prompted anonymous notes about suspicious activity, code for unease with his presence as the only black homeowner on the block. The association's president, a retired accountant named Harold, embodied the subtle venom. Though Marcus had never exchanged more than pleasantries with him, he sensed the undercurrents, the way conversations hushed when he entered community meetings, the extra glances at his military-plated truck. It wasn't overt. It was the insidious kind of racism that hid behind bylaws and smiles, eroding dignity one infraction notice at a time. Marcus brushed it off, focusing on his routines, morning meditations to quiet the echoes of past missions, volunteer work at the local Veterans Center, and occasional calls to old comrades. Curiosity built slowly, like storm clouds gathering. Marcus began receiving escalating warnings. claims of noise violations from his non-existent parties, accusations of property neglect despite his meticulous upkeep. He wondered who was behind it, piecing together fragments. A neighbor's averted eyes, Harold's evasive emails. Unbeknownst to him, the HOA had escalated, hiring freelance enforcers under the guise of private security. These men, ex-cops with dubious records, were tasked with resolving persistent issues, their methods skirting legality. They thrived on intimidation, preying on those least likely to fight back. As the SUV idled outside, Marcus set down his coffee, a faint unease stirring. He had faced ambushes before, but this felt different, domestic, personal. The knock came again, pulling him toward the door. Little did he know, this was the culmination of months of targeted harassment rooted in the fear of difference that plagued Elmwood. The setup was complete, the stage set for a confrontation that would unravel the facade of suburban harmony. Rising action, approximate 700 words. The door swung open, and the imposter's eyes locked on Marcus, their postures shifting. With predatory confidence, the lead man, broad and imposing with a mustache that failed to hide his contempt, thrust the forged warrant forward. His companion, slimmer but no less menacing, flanked him, hand resting on a baton. They announced their intent with authoritative bluster, claiming authority from the HOA to detain him for repeated violations and resisting compliance. Marcus stood unmoving, his mind racing through assessments honed by years in elite forces, threat levels, escape routes, vulnerabilities. The injustice unfurled like a toxic bloom. These men weren't real law enforcement, their badges were cheap, replicas, their uniforms ill-fitting. But in that moment, they embodied the systemic bias Marcus had encountered throughout his life, from childhood stops by suspicious officers to post-service job interviews where his qualifications were questioned. Here, in his own home, the pattern repeated, assumptions of guilt based on skin color, amplified by the HOA's whispered campaign. Harold and his board had labeled him a problem. Their emails, later discovered, laced with coded language about maintaining community standards and undesirable elements. As they pushed inside, ignoring his calm request for identification, tension escalated. The lead imposter grabbed Marcus's arm, twisting it with unnecessary force, a move meant to subdue. Pain flared, but Marcus restrained his reflexes. His body, a coiled weapon waiting for the right moment. Flashbacks intruded, desert nights where he dismantled insurgent cells, the weight of decisions that saved lives. Now, in his living room, surrounded by photos of his SEAL team, he felt the emotional stakes rise. This wasn't just about him. It was about every black veteran dismissed, every family displaced by gentrified prejudices. They rifled through his drawers, scattering papers, military honors mixed with bills, mocking his excuses. The slimmer man sneered at a photo of Marcus in uniform, dismissing it as probably fake. The air grew heavy with their taunts, unspoken but palpable racial, slurs hanging like smoke. Marcus's heart pounded, not from fear, but rage at the audacity. These frauds profiting from division, hired by cowards hiding behind association dues. Outside, neighbors peeked through curtains, their silence complicit. The imposters escalated, cuffing one wrist, dragging him toward the door. Marcus's mind cataloged their mistakes. Poor stance, overconfidence, ignored surroundings. Emotional tension peaked as he thought of his late wife, lost to illness during his deployment, and how he had promised to build a safe life. This violation stripped that away, revealing the raw nerve of racial injustice that persisted despite his sacrifices for the country. The stakes built relentlessly. If he resisted too soon, he risked escalation. Too late, and the charade might succeed. Sweat beaded on his brow as they shoved him into the SUV, the engine rumbling to life. In that confined space, the imposter's arrogance swelled, one boasting of past cleanups. Marcus breathed deeply, drawing on SEAL training, patience as a weapon. The drive to a secluded spot intensified the dread, each mile amplifying the wrongness. This was no mere arrest, it was an erasure, a message to others like him. Yet curiosity turned to resolve. Marcus noted their route, their weapons' positions. The emotional layers deepened, betrayal by a community he tried to join, the irony of a decorated hero treated as criminal. As they pulled into a dark lot, ordering him out, the tension crested. The injustice had been laid bare, the stakes life-altering. Now, the reversal loomed. The SUV doors slammed shut in the abandoned lot, the imposters hauling Marcus out with rough hands. The lead man, emboldened by the isolation, shoved him against the vehicle, his face inches away, breath hot with triumph. "You think you're special?" he growled, though no words were exchanged beyond actions that screamed dominance. His companion circled, baton raised, ready to strike. This was the pinnacle of their plan, a fabricated resistance to justify whatever came next, all to appease the HOA's vendetta. Marcus's world narrowed to the immediate threat. His free hand, uncuffed in their haste, flexed imperceptibly. Years of SEAL training surged through him like adrenaline-fueled lightning. Close-quarters combat drills in mock villages, disarming techniques practiced until muscle memory overrode thought. The emotional peak hit, a torrent of fury at the racial audacity, the mockery of his service. These men represented every unchecked bias, every system that allowed such imposters to thrive. In a blur of motion, Marcus struck. He twisted his body, using the lead man's grip against him, a judo throw that sent the burly figure sprawling onto the gravel. The impact echoed, stones scattering like fleeing witnesses. The companion lunged, baton swinging, but Marcus sidestepped, with predatory grace, his elbow connecting with the attacker's solar plexus. Air whooshed out in a silent gasp, the man doubling over. No shouts, no pleas, just the raw symphony of bodies in conflict. The lead imposter scrambled up, drawing a pistol, his eyes wide with the first glimmers of realization. But Marcus was faster, a shadow incarnate. He closed the distance, disarming with a precise wrist lock, the gun clattering away. Pain contorted the man's face as Marcus applied pressure, forcing him to his knees. The companion recovered enough to charge, but Marcus anticipated, sweeping his leg in a low kick that toppled him. Pinned now, both men writhed under the weight of their miscalculation. The intensity crested as Marcus secured them with their own cuffs, his breaths steady amid the chaos. Flashbacks interwove, raiding compounds under moonless skies, the fear in enemies' eyes mirroring what he saw now. But this was personal, the climax of a lifetime battling invisibility, where his blackness was weaponized against him. He retrieved, their phones documenting the scene with clinical detachment, evidence of the fraud. The emotional stakes exploded in silent waves, vindication mixed with sorrow. These weren't just thugs, they were symptoms of a deeper malaise hired by neighbors who viewed him as other. As sirens wailed in the distance, summoned by Marcus's quick call from their vehicle, the drama peaked. The impostor's arrogance shattered, replaced by dawning terror. Marcus stood tall, the most feared Navy SEAL not because of kills or medals, but his unyielding resolve against injustice. The lot, once a stage for intended humiliation, became a turning point. The men's struggles ceased as real authorities arrived, lights flashing like judgment. Marcus's composure held, a beacon amid the turmoil, the climax resolving in a surge of empowerment that echoed beyond the night. With the imposters in custody, the veil over Elmwood Estates lifted. Investigations revealed the HOA's complicity. Emails, exposing Harold's orchestration, driven by racial resentment masked as community protection. The fake cops confessed, their operation crumbling under scrutiny. Marcus, unscathed but forever changed, became a reluctant symbol, his story spreading through local news, highlighting the pervasive rot of suburban racism. The neighborhood shifted uneasily. Some residents offered apologies, others moved away, but the impact rippled, reformed bylaws, diversity initiatives, and Marcus's quiet advocacy at veterans' forums. He returned to his garden, tomatoes ripening under a freer sun, but the scars lingered, a reminder of battles fought on home soil. In the end, true strength isn't in force, but in exposing shadows. What happens when society turns a blind eye to injustice? It festers until one person's stand illuminates the path for many. Reflect on this. In your own community, whose voice is silenced, and what will you do to amplify it?